Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 127, coming at you from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you get your podcast with the videos on YouTube. And we have a hell of a show. I'm feeling refreshed from the Thanksgiving holiday. Good people, good food, and what a few announcements the UFC has put on as they are starting to round out their 2026 CBS Paramount new fights. So we got a hell of a show with a massive pay-per-view, UFC 323 to preview, and a bunch of fights that we will break down. So let's jump right in. We got in UFC 324, we have Arnold Allen taking on Gene Silva. What a banger in the featherweight division. We have the short notice man, Waldo Cortez Acosta, getting another massive fight against the knockout king, Derek Lewis. Another banger. We have Ottavah Gautier taking on Andre Pulyaev in his toughest test yet. Another great fight. And in the women's side of thing, we had a fight booked, already a fallout. It was originally Alexa Grasso taking on Rose Namajunas, my girl. That was the fight that I wanted to see. Well, Alexa Grasso is already pulled out, so insert number one contender, Natalia Silva. I assume this will be a number one contender fight, the winner getting the next shot against Valentina Shevchenko. Could you imagine Valentina Rose Namajunas? That's exactly what I had wanted. I do think Rose has had a weird couple of years training with her husband, Pat Barry. I don't like it, but hopefully she can reignite the fire, because I am all about it. And what a stud. Natalia's probably like, hey, Valentina's taking time off. Let me go prove myself again. That's the type of shit I like. Then we get Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Deiveson Figueiredo, ex-flyweight champion, at UFC 324, as that is getting rounded out. And there's more. We got Sean O'Malley taking on Song Yadong, the Sugar Show back in the octagon. I might have to try and make this card, but the cost is probably going to outprice me. We get Kayla Harrison taking on Amanda Nunes in the co-main event. I don't know if it's the biggest women's fight of all time, but it's damn near up there. It's the fight we've all been waiting for. And then we get Justin Gaethje taking on Paddy Pimblett in the interim lightweight championship, as Ilia Topuria has announced he will not fight in the near future, as he's dealing with a messy divorce with his children and everything else. People are trying to say they're hating him. I don't blame them. But the fact that we're getting Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje is a goddamn disgrace to the lightweight division. How in the hell Paddy Pimblett is getting this? It has to be the UFC trying to push him. This is a winnable fight for Paddy. I hope Justin knocks his brick off. But let's look at the lightweight division. How are we booking these two when we have Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway? Probably because they're putting them in the BMF fight. But how does Arman Tsarukyan not get the first choice? You want Gaethje in there, you want Paddy in there, that's fine. But what the fuck are we going to do with Arman Tsarukyan now? I feel so bad for Arman in this situation. Regardless, life moves on. And then we also have in the flyweight division, Alex Perez turning around quickly, taking on Charles Johnson. That should be a doozy. And then at UFC 325 in Sydney, Australia, we get the return of Jacob Malkoun taking on Torres Finney. That should be interesting. And then we have the featherweight champion getting a rematch against Diego Lopez. I'm not as mad about this one as I am in the lightweight division. I just don't understand how they're giving the title shot to Diego Lopez again when we have clear contenders, in my opinion. We have Movsar Evloev just sitting there. Lerone Murphy, who I thought was next, just sitting there. There might be an instance where those two have to fight each other, and I feel bad for them. But I guess fighters with popularity really do swing the picks here. And then on February 28th, we get a couple UFC Mexico fights as Imanol Rodriguez, Ultimate Fighter alum, taking on Kevin Borjas. And then Edgar Chairez taking on Felipe Bunes. So some good fights. And we also this past week had the RAF wrestling event, RAF 3. What does RAF stand for again? I'm loving these events though. Real American Freestyle Wrestling. They're putting a lot of ex-UFCers in there. They've already booked a couple events or some premier fights coming up, so we'll look at those as well. But let's talk about what went down in RAF 3. All right. So we had Alexis Gomez defeating Bella Mir 7-3. Bella has looked great in jiu-jitsu, but couldn't defeat some of the best wrestlers. There's definitely levels to wrestling, and a couple ex-UFCers have felt that. As Pat Downey dominated Joaquin Buckley in a 12-0 tech fall, which means he max pointed him. And then we also had Caden Henschel defeating the Carpenter Clay Guida 11-0 via tech fall. Former Iowa wrestler stud Spencer Lee getting defeated by Andrei Yatsenko via pin. Hate to see it. And then UFC on UFC Crime, we had Michael Chandler defeating Chad Mendez 4-1, and what a doozy of an affair there. We already have RAF 4 booked for December 20th in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have Bull Nickel taking on Yoel Romero. Sheesh. We got NCAA champion David Carr taking on Bilal Muhammad. What else we got in there? Zahid Valencia, former ASU wrestler, taking on Parker Kekasin. And then heavyweight champion who defeated, God, what the hell is his name? The new stud that's about to come to the UFC fighting MMA. I'm blanking on his name. Regardless, he's taking on Mason Paris in the heavyweight division. God, I can't remember his name. I'm blanking. He trains with John Jones. You guys probably know who I'm talking about. But fun little card. And then we have the Freestyle Wrestling Event 5 already booking some headliners, as we have Colby Covington taking on Luke Rockhold. Luke Rockhold doing anything and everything, man, to try to make some bread, it seems like. And then we also have Kyle Dake facing the winner of the RAF 4 event between Mamad Khabib, Kadzi Mahadamuyu, and Dustin Plott. So we'll be talking about these. These have been fun. They're on Fox Nation. I've been streaming them illegally. It is what it is, but they're fun events. But enough about that crap. We got UFC 323 this weekend. The early prelims at 3 p.m. Pacific. The prelims at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN2. They've also announced next year in Paramount, the pay-per-views will be starting an hour early, which I'm all for. Because sometimes you go out, you have some good times, a few beverages for the pay-per-view, you want to go out, and sometimes it's a little bit too late. So we get an extra hour to party, I guess. To preview this card, I mean, there is massive fights everywhere, even in the prelims. I think there is a couple fights that are just very, very fun, violent matchups. Fantastic matchmaking. The fans are going to be in for a doozy. And the main card is obviously absolutely stacked. 2 titles on the line. I really think the story comes down to the young stud Joshua Van trying to shock the world. This kid has done the impossible. Can he keep it going? I am previewing this an 8 out of 10. I was close to giving it a 9 out of 10. I think it's missing a little bit. And the last time I previewed a card a 9 out of 10, it underwhelmed. But there's one fight we will not break down. We get Contender Series alum Iwu Baranowski taking on Ibo Aslan. But let's kick this off in the early prelims. We're breaking down 4 fights before the prelims. That's how stacked this card is. We have Muhammad Hilman Naimov, 31 years old with a 13-3 record, taking on Myron the Legend Santos, 25 years old with a 17-1 record. Again, these are a lot of interesting fights. I mean, Naimov is just now hitting his prime at 31 years old. He already has 2 wins this year. And Myron has really jumped into the scene after winning the Ultimate Fighter. He had a very impressive win over Sadiq Youssef, so his third win this year could put him right into the top 15 of the division, although he's only 25 years old and is still a pretty young and raw fighter. Breaking this down, Muhammad has a Taekwondo style. He trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He's a Titan FC, Contender Series, and Tough Enough alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak and is 5-1 in the UFC, and 6 of his 13 wins are via knockout. Now, Myron trains out of Extreme Couture. He's an LFA and Ultimate Fighter alum and champion. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 3-0 in the UFC, and 8 of his 16 wins are via knockout. Now, I expect Muhammad trying to pressure Santos and try to avoid the power in his quick hands, because they are very impressive. You'll see him try to mix in takedowns, look to wear and tire out Santos, which we have seen that on film where he has worn out as the fights have gone on. But Santos has also shown that he can overcome adversity late in fights. He has sustained high-volume pressure fighters like he did in his fight against Francis Marshall. But Santos will have the boxing advantage, so Naimov's going to have to be creative closing the distance and being patient for his openings, or he will get caught. For that reason, I'm taking the young stud, Myron Santos, but I'm avoiding this on a parlay if possible. Moving on, we have Mansour Abdul Malik. I guess it's Malik. 28 years old with an undefeated 8-0-1 record, taking on Antonio Malvado Tricoli. 34 years old with a 12-5 record. You gotta feel for Antonio. You know, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, both by finish, and he has to take on this young powerhouse in Mansour. I mean, Antonio is still searching for his first win in the UFC, and this is what he gets handed to. You know, I don't expect him to be able to handle the pure power, the force, and the explosiveness of Mansour, because it's elite. But breaking this down, Mansour is an LFA and Contender Series alum. He's 3-0. I would like to say 4-0. His last fight got withdrew to a no contest. But he's 7 of his 8 wins are via knockout, 1 via submission, so all 8 of his wins via finish. Now, Antonio is a Legacy FC Jungle Fight and Contender Series alum. He's 0-2 in the UFC. 5 of his 12 wins are via submission, 3 via knockout, so 8 of his 12 wins via finish. Now, Mansour has to be able to make sure he doesn't rush things and pick his spots. He does get a little overzealous. I honestly don't see a world where Antonio is able to handle the beast on the feet that Mansour is, and there isn't much else for him to do. I don't expect him to get takedowns, so for that reason, I'm taking Mansour Abdul Malik. I am probably not putting him on a parlay because his odds are so high. Moving on, we get the return of Jalen the Tarantula Turner. 30 years old with a 14-9 record, taking on Edson Jr. Barboza. 39 years old with a 24-13 record. Now, the question is, how serious is Jalen taking this after he had an early retirement? It only lasted a few months, but I did hear him on the Ariel Helwani show that he has been constantly training even post-retirement. I think he went to Shoot Box and was helping those guys, and they were telling him he should continue fighting. It does seem like he's dialed in for his return. Edson has been a highlight. I mean, he is a world beater. He has very good and unique skills, but he's almost 40 years old. He's coming off 2 losses. I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough over the course of 15 minutes to hang. You know, Edson has a lot of scar tissue on his face. It seems like he gets cut open pretty easily. He wears damage brutally. And Jalen, he's a solid striker. He's long, and he can deliver a lot of damage. But breaking it down, Jalen trains out of RVCA. He has a brown belt in BJJ. He's a World Series of Fighting, Bellator, King of the Cage, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 1-4 since 2023. 10 of his 14 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 9 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. And he also has a 5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Edson has a black Prajid in Muay Thai, a black belt in Taekwondo, and a brown belt in BJJ. He's a Ring of Combat alum and former champion. 3 of his last 4 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's showing up, he's showing out, even at damn near 40. He's tied with Dustin Poirier for the most fight of the night bonuses in UFC history. Not performance of the night, fucking fight of the night. And that's 10 of them things. He had the 2012 knockout of the year against Terry Etim at UFC 142. He is on a 2-fight losing streak. He is 2-2 since 2023 and 0-1 in his return to the lightweight division. Now, again, I can't state this enough. Edson Barboza has been a highlight machine over the course of his career. If you're a new casual coming into the UFC scene, go back and watch his fights. I just really don't understand, though, how is he going to be able to match with a striker at this point in his career? I mean, in his last fight against Drakkar Klose, who I like, he's a solid striker, but not great striker, was able to dominate Edson on the feet. So I really don't have a lot of confidence anymore that Edson is going to be able to hang. I think he should actually consider retirement. But don't get me wrong, he is skilled, he could catch a body at any moment in time, but he's been in too many wars and I think he's past his prime. For that reason, I'm taking Jalen Turner. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Marvin the Italian Dream Vittori. 32 years old with a 19-9-1 record and the number 14 next to his name. Taking on Bruno the Hulk Ferreira. 33 years old with 14-2 record. Again, the matchmaking is phenomenal. This is a very fun fight between 2 talented middleweights in their primes. It's pretty wild to think Marvin Vittori is younger than Bruno Ferreira. I mean, Bruno has only been with the UFC since 2023, but he has a massive win over Gregory Rodriguez. You know, Marvin has fought for the title. He's been with the UFC since 2016, fighting the best. And you'd think he'd be at his best right now as he's nearing 33. But after missing all of 2024 and being on a 3-fight skid, he also doesn't have a finish since 2020. A win via decision is the most likely outcome if Marvin is to win, but I do feel like his UFC career relies on this outcome. Breaking it down, Marvin trains out of American Top Team. He has a brown belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night. He is showing up, he is showing out. He has the 3rd most total strikes landed in middleweight division history with 1,597. The 2nd most takedowns landed in a middleweight bout with 11 against Kevin Holland. The 3rd longest average fight time in middleweight history at 16 minutes and 48 seconds. He is on that 3-fight losing streak, 1-3 since 2023, and 9 of his 19 wins are via submission. Now, Bruno is a Contender Series alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak and is 3-1 since 2023. 9 of his 14 wins are via knockout. You know, Bruno has kind of like a sneaky finishing ability between his grappling and power. Unless Marvin is able to get takedowns and actually bring the volume with his hands, I think it's going to be a tough fight for him because Bruno has good grappling of his own, and if the fight turns into a brawl, I like his finishing ability over Marvin's. You know, Bruno was taken down 4 times against Abus Magomedov, but Marvin hasn't been utilizing his offensive wrestling, and he only had 1 takedown in his last 3 fights, and that was against Jared Cannonier. And I've said it a lot with Marvin recently. I just don't know what his game plans are in the fights. He just kind of comes in, throws 1-2 strike combos. He doesn't bring in enough volume to mix it up, and he doesn't bring in his grappling. For that reason, I honestly have no faith in him. I'm going to take Bruno Ferreira, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Huge fight for Marvin. He's got to get a dub. And then, now just in the prelims, we have Nazim the Black Wolf Siddiqov. 31 years old with an 11-1-1 record, taking on Fares the Smile Killer Ziam. 28 years old with a 17-4 record. Again, these prelims, they're just as good as any Apex main card you could find, and this fight speaks to it, with a very fun and physical showdown in the best weight class in the UFC. You know, Nazim is on a tear this year. But Ferris, as he nears his prime at 28 years old, has really come into his own the past few years. He does have a nice reach advantage, so he's going to have to try to keep the pressure and the power away from Sadikov. Breaking this down, Nazim is a Ring of Combat, Cage Fury, Fury FC, and Contender Series alum. He's been around. He's on a 10-fight winning streak, although he did have a draw. So he's 4-0-1 since 2023. 3 of his last 5 fights have been Fight of the Night, and the last one was actually a double bonus where he got the Performance of the Night and Fight of the Night. He's absolutely showing up. He's showing out. 8 of his 11 wins are via knockout. Now, Ferris trains out of Killcliff FC. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. 6 of his 17 wins are via knockout, 4 via submission. So 10 of his 17 wins are via finish. Now 3 of his 4 losses are via submission. But he does have a 6-inch reach advantage in this fight. Now Nazim is coming off 2 very impressive TKO finishes, and his last 5 wins in the UFC have come via finish. With how aggressive of a fighter he is, I don't expect this fight to go the full 15. You know, Ferris has been bringing in a lot of takedown attempts in his offensive game plan of late, but Terrence McKinney is the last person to take Nazim down. He had 2 takedowns in 2023, but it ended up costing him as Nazim reversed him and submitted him. I think Ferris is going to have the speed advantage and has more of a well-rounded offensive attack, as Nazim's mostly a striker, but I do expect Nazim to pressure him and have Ziam feel his power early. He may take him down just to try to mix in some attempts, but I don't expect Ziam to be able to take Sadikov down and hold him down. I think Ziam's going to have to be creative with his movement and his ability to get in and out of range with that length, and have Nazim pay for trying to close distance. Things like knees up the middle. He landed a beautiful knee that knocked out Matt Frivola not that long ago. But for the sake of picking, I'm taking the underdog the dog's coming to eat. I'm taking Nazim Sadikov, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. But I'm telling you, those early prelim fights are a doozy. Starting the prelims with this, and then these next few fights is absolute chaos. Here we go to the women's. We have Macy the Future Barber. 27 years old, a 14-2 record, and the number 5 next to her name, taking on Karine Killer Silva. 31 years old with a 19-5 record, and the number 9 next to her name. Life with Macy lately, the biggest question of this fight is her health. You know, she pulled out minutes before her last fight against Erin Blanchfield, went to the hospital, had some crazy stuff going on, and she only fought once last year due to injuries. When she is in the octagon, you can't deny what she's done. And she has actually entered the octagon with a finish over women like Amanda Hebos. And she had a dominant display against a former contender and a very good Caitlin Sermonara. Karina stacked up a bunch of wins, but is missing a quality win, and her only defeat was against Viviane Araujo. Breaking this down, Macy has a karate style with a 2nd-degree black belt in karate. She has a purple belt in BJJ. She trains out of Team Alpha Male. She's tied with Manon Fiorot for the 2nd most knockouts in UFC women's flyweight division, with 3 behind Valentina Shevchenko. She's an LFA and Contender Series alum. She's on a 6-fight winning streak, and 6 of her 14 wins are via knockout. Very impressive in women's MMA. Now, Karine has an orthodox stance. She trains out of Fighting Nerds with a black belt in BJJ. She's a Fight Nights Global and Contender Series alum. She's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 4-1 since 2023. 9 of her 19 wins are via knockout, 8 via submission, so 17 of her 19 wins via finish. Again, very impressive in women's MMA. Clearly, both of these women are finishers. They're in their fighting primes. I do think, though, Macy is a little younger and has fought much stiffer competition, so she is more proven. Karina is good everywhere, and training with fighting nerds, you know, she's not going to be an easy out. As long as Macy has her health issues at bay, I expect her to be able to outdo Karine on the feet. I just think she's more technical, and she'll probably look for takedowns to wear on Silva. If Karine can utilize kicks and point fight Macy and counter her aggression, she could pull it off, but I'm not feeling that. For that reason, I'm taking Macy Barber. I am putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on, we have Chris the Problem Duncan. 32 years old with a 14-2 record, taking on Terrence T-Rex McKinney. 31 years old with a 17-7 record. Now the lightweight division is going to show off its depth with the prelim opener, which is going to be so much fun for fight fans. But then this fight between two of probably the more violent prize fighters in the division. I mean, when you talk about pace and aggression, I don't think anyone is more quick to the trigger than these two fighters. Chris has 2 submissions, mostly from beating his opponents down with his striking in his last 3 fights, and every single one of McKinney's UFC wins have been via first round finish. Breaking it down, Terrence has a purple belt in BJJ. He has a D2 wrestling background out of Chadron State College and North Idaho College. He's a Contender Series and LFA alum. He's on a 2-fight winning streak and is 4-3 since 2023. He has the fastest finish and knockout in UFC lightweight history, which took 7 seconds against Matt Frivola. He has the shortest average fight time in lightweight history at 2 minutes and 25 seconds. The highest striking differential in lightweight history at 3.87. He has the 3rd most knockdowns per 15 minutes in lightweight history at 1.69. 8 of his 17 wins are via knockout, 9 via submission, so all 17 of his wins via finish, and 5 of his 7 losses are via knockout. Now Chris trains out of the American Top Team. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's showing up, he's showing out. He's a Bellator Contender Series 2 times and UFL alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, 5-1 since 2023, and 7 of his 14 wins are via knockout. A T-Rex Terrence McKinney fight, one thing is for sure, he is going to make this a brawl. And Chris is going to have to try to be calm and cool and find his spots and take advantage of his openings early in this fight. You know, if Terrence could just chill a little bit and think more highly of him having a chance in this fight, but I'm not sure if I can have faith, as he hasn't shown the willingness to change his fighting style. Now Chris, I feel like, does well in wild positions, 50-50 positions, wrestling exchanges, in the clinch and at distance. I could see Chris landing a counter head kick like he did against Esteban Rabovics, or just scrambling into top position and submitting McKinney. Don't blink in this fight, it's about to go down. But I'm taking Chris Duncan. I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. This one smells like blood in the water. Moving on, we have Grant KGD Dawson. 31 years old with a 23-2-1 record, taking on Manuel El Loco Torres. 30 years old with a 16-3 record. Now this is another great prelim lightweight showdown between 2 men in their primes who are looking to continue their winning ways. You know, Grant has been mostly reliant on his offensive grappling, but he has showcased improved hands and striking. Manuel has only fought 1 round in his UFC career, much like Terrence McKinney, and is a well-rounded stud. Anything is possible in this fight, but I do think Grant sails out for takedowns and has success, but the question is, can he keep him there? Breaking it down, Grant has a wrestling style. He trains out of American Top Team with a black belt in BJJ. He's a Titan FC and Contender Series alum. He has the 2nd highest control time percentage in lightweight history at 69.7%. The highest top position percentage in lightweight history at 62.3%. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's 4-1 since 2023. 13 of his 23 wins are via submission, and both of his losses are via knockout. Now, Manuel has a Muay Thai style. He has an orthodox stance. He's a Contender Series alum. 4 of his last 5 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. I mean, these are performance fighters on this card. He has the second shortest average fight time in lightweight history at 2 minutes and 34 seconds. The most knockdowns per 15 minutes in lightweight history at 3.51. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-1 since 2023. 8 of his 16 wins are via knockout, 7 via submission, so 15 of his 16 wins via finish. These dudes are finishers. 2 of his 3 losses are via submission. Now, Grant has that elite American top team grappling. I'm not sure if Manuel can avoid it. Manuel hasn't faced a grappler like Grant, but he was taken down against Chris Duncan. You know, Grant has had success in his last few fights with taking down Carlos Diego Fajeda and Rafa Garcia, so I would assume he can get takedowns here. If Manuel can keep majority of the fight, especially the first round on the feet, it will be interesting, but this is mostly a clash of styles showdown. But I'm taking Grant Dawson, but I'm avoiding this on any parlay. These fights are serious 50-50 coin flip fights. But let's kick off the main card. We got Bogdan Sarevich Guskov, 33 years old with an 18-3 record and the number 11 next to his name, taking on John Blakovic, 42 years old with a 29-11-1 record and the number 5 next to his name. So we're getting some new blood in his fighting prime, looking to retire a former champion who still has some fight left. You know, he's almost 43 years old. I have picked a lot of vets in fights. I just feel like sometimes they're taking on these guys who haven't been there, done that. Experience does pay dividends. I just can't pick someone who has been inactive and is almost 43. I mean, Jan had his first fight in 2 years against the new contender in Carlos Olberg, and he looked slowed down, but he hung in there. He had his leg kicks going well, but he wasn't able to land much up top due to Olberg's speed and elusiveness. Breaking this down, Bogdan has an orthodox stance. He trains out of American Top Team. He has a brown belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2023. 15 of his 18 wins are via knockout, 3 via submission, so all 18 of his wins via finish. Now, Jan has a black belt in BJJ. He won gold in the 2008 Muay Thai World Championships. He's a KSW alum and former champ with 2 successful title defenses. He's also the former light heavyweight champ with 1 successful title defense. He's the first male Polish champion in UFC history. He's tied with Glover Teixeira for the second most significant strikes landed in light heavyweight history at 953. He has the 3rd most total strikes landed in lightweight history at 1,366. He has the most decision bouts in UFC light heavyweight history with 12. He was the 2020 Male MMA Fighter of the Year. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He's won 2-1 since 2022. 9 of his 29 wins are via knockout, 9 via submission, so 18 of his 29 wins via finish. Now, I do think Jan was much better than Bogdan in his prime, but at almost 43 years old, I don't think he's going to get a finish as Bogdan has only been finished once in the UFC. I could see Jan working his leg kicks and do enough each round. I do think he has a legit shot here. I've been a little bit back and forth, but I do expect Bogdan to bring the fight to Jan and be able to get the more meaningful shots each round. For that reason, I'm taking Bogdan Guskov, but I'm again avoiding this on any parlays possible. Moving on, we have Henry Triple C Cejudo, 38 years old with a 16-5 record and the number 10 next to his name, taking on Peyton Talbot, 27 years old with a 10-1 record. This is a kind of random fight, but I'm all here for it, to be honest. I mean, Peyton is like an enigma in the UFC. He is full of potential, but he's still young and raw in his MMA career. Henry, at his best, was as good as anyone, especially in the flyweight division, but he's only fought once a year since returning from retirement, and although he has fought well, I just don't see him being able to outstrike Payton at this point in his career. He's going to have to take Payton down and keep him there, and that would be a tough send-off for the triple champ. With that being said, Yeoni Barcelos was able to take Payton down and hold him there and humble the young fighter. I just think that fight served as a turning point for Payton and will pay dividends in this fight. Breaking it down, Henry has a freestyle wrestling style. He has a yellow belt in Shotokan Karate. He is an Olympic freestyle champion wrestler back in 2008. He won gold. He's a former bantamweight champion. He had one successful title defense, and former flyweight champion with one successful title defense as well. He's the 7th two-division champ in UFC history, only the 4th simultaneous two-division champ where he actually held both titles. He had the 2018 upset of the year against Demetrius Johnson. In 2018, he was also inducted in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's a Legacy FC and Ultimate Fighter alum. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, 1-3 since 2020, and 0-3 in his return from retirement, all in the bantamweight division. 8 of his 16 wins are via knockout. Now, Payton is an A1 former champion with 2 successful title defenses and a Contender Series alum. He has the 3rd fastest knockout finish in UFC bantamweight division history, which was 19 seconds against Giannis Gamori. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 5-1 in the UFC. 7 of his 10 wins are via knockout. He has a 6.5-inch reach and a 3-inch leg reach advantage. Now, honestly, I don't understand all the hate that Henry gets because he does deserve credit in his accomplishments. I just don't think he's hungry to really get a win here. Not only is he way undersized in the bantamweight division, especially against Talbot, but he's getting a talented striker with decent grappling and wrestling defense. Henry is going to have to sell out with his wrestling and win a decision, in my opinion. Yet, Yeoni did it recently, but again, I think that has prepared Payton. For that reason, I'm taking Payton Talbot. But again, I'm avoiding this on any parlays. Anything can happen in these fights. My old self would have took Jan Blachowicz and Henry Cejudo, switching it up a little bit. Then we get these 3 fights. Golly, what absolute bangers we get. We get Brandon the Assassin Baby Moreno. 31 years old with a 23-8-2 record and the number 2 next to his name. Taking on Tatsuro the Best Taira. 25 years old with a 17-1 record and the number 5 next to his name. Now this is kind of another prospect versus proven vet. The big difference is Moreno is just now in his fighting prime at 31. I mean, Brandon has looked great since the days past in the Figgy trilogy. Although he's lost split decisions to Brandon Royval and Alexandre Pantoja, I think he's got his fire back and has something to prove against a very good young stud in Tatsuro Taira, who has future champion written all over him. Breaking it down, Brandon trains out of Fortis MMA. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's an LFA alum and former champ, an Ultimate Fighter alum. He's had 2 stints with the UFC. He's the former flyweight champion 2 different times, was also an interim flyweight champ, and he's the first Mexican champ in UFC history. He's tied with Davison Figueiredo for the 3rd most title fight wins in UFC flyweight history with 3. He has the 2nd most Fight of the Night bonuses in UFC flyweight history with 5, behind Brandon Royval. He has the 2nd most Performance of the Night bonuses in flyweight history with 7. He has the 3rd most bouts in flyweight history with 18. The most total fight time in UFC flyweight history at 5 hours, 8 minutes, and 28 seconds. He has the 2nd longest average fight time in UFC flyweight history at 17 minutes, 3 seconds. The most significant strikes landed in flyweight history, 1,220. The 3rd most total strikes landed in flyweight history, 1,534. He had the 2021 Fight of the Year against Davison Figueiredo at UFC 256, which also earned him the 2021 Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 3-2 since 2023. 11 of his 23 wins are via submission, 5 via knockout, so 18 of his 23 wins via finish. Now, Tatsuro has a purple belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 3 fights have been performance of the night or fight of the night. He's showing up, he's showing out. He's the first fighter born in the 2000s to win a UFC main event. He has the second most control time percentage in UFC flyweight history at 52.1%. The second most top position percentage in flyweight history at 46.4%. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 7-1 in the UFC. 8 of his 17 wins are via submission, 5 via knockout, so 13 of his 17 wins via finish. Now, Tatsuro is fucking slick. Really good at getting his opponent's backs. Brandon needs to be very, very careful because he hasn't faced someone who is as slick, creative, and quick as Tatsuro. Amir Albazi only got 1 takedown against Moreno, and Pantoja had his way with him. I do expect Tatsuro to get a share of takedowns, but man, in a 3-round fight, I think Brandon could get his own takedowns if needed, and is going to be too technical and gritty for Tatsuro to handle today, as he's almost 26. I think the takeaway here is Tyra's a stud. We're going to see it. That this will be a massive learning experience for him, but at this moment, I'm taking Brandon Moreno. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. For the flyweight championship, we have Alexandre, the Cannibal Pantoja. 35 years old with a 30-5 record, taking on Joshua, the Fearless Van. 24 years old with a 15-2 record. I honestly think this is much like the previous fight, as we get the young, new generation style fighter getting their shot. But I think Alexandre, who is still in his fighting prime, isn't ready to give up the title against a green fighter who hasn't faced a grappler like Pantoja yet. I do think people forget, Pantoja's a solid striker himself, but he does live off the grappling, and I don't think Van is going to be prepared enough. Breaking it down, Alexandre trains out of American Top Team. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's an RFA alum and former champion. He is now seeking his 5th title defense in a row. He has the second most title fight wins in UFC flyweight history with 5, behind Demetrius Johnson. 4 of his last 7 fights have been performance of the night or fight of the night. As a champ, he's showing up, he's showing out. He's tied with Kai Kara France and Brandon Royval for the 3rd most post-fight bonuses in UFC flyweight history with 6. He has the most wins in UFC flyweight division history with 14. The most finishes in flyweight history with 8. The most submissions in UFC flyweight history was 6. The second longest winning streak in flyweight history with 8, behind Demetrius Johnson. The 3rd most takedowns landed in flyweight history with 40. The 3rd most total control time in flyweight history, 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 19 seconds. He had the 2023 Fight of the Year against Brandon Moreno at UFC 290. He's on an 8-fight winning streak. 12 of his 30 wins are via submission, 8 via knockout, so 20 of his 30 wins via finish. Now, Joshua is a Fury FC alum and former champ. He has the highest significant strikes landed per minute in UFC history, not flyweight history, all of UFC history, at 8.86. This kid can throw hands. He has the highest striking differential in flyweight history at 2.5. The second most significant strikes landed in flyweight history, 1,097, behind Brandon Moreno, and the kid is 24 years old. He has the second highest significant strike accuracy in flyweight history at 56.8%, behind Demetrius Johnson. He's on a 5-fight winning streak, 8-1 in the UFC. 7 of his 15 wins are via knockout. Now this will very much be a clash of style fight. Alexandre is going to look to take Van down, and Van is going to look to box the shit out of Pantoja. If either man has their way, they should get the win. Joshua has never fought a 5-round fight, but he looked really good in his 3-round affair in June in an all-out brawl against Brandon Royval. I do think that Joshua is going to be doing too much trying to beat down Pantoja, and I think he's going to leave some openings for Pantoja to take advantage. I don't think this goes to a decision, but if it does, I am interested to see how Van's cardio shows up over the course of 25 minutes. Also, Alexandre has shown that he has slowed down later in fights, but he wins the early rounds. So this could be a dominant win or a very, very interesting 5-round decision. But I'm saying, and still, I'm taking Alexandre Pantoja. We're putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. The bantamweight GOAT, Merab the Machine Dvalishvili. 34 years old with a 21-4 record, is taking on Pewter No Mercy Yan. 32 years old with a 19-5 record and the number 3 next to his name. So this is a rematch that dates back 2.5 years ago. It's really interesting because supposedly Pewter fought with a broken hand or torn shoulder in his right hand, which is his best punching hand. So he wasn't able to leverage it. Merab, though, is literally the machine. He has smothered his opponents unlike anyone else since 2018. He's still in his prime, and in their first fight, he landed 11 takedowns in 49 attempts. Nobody out there is shooting 49 attempts. But he only had 6 minutes and 53 seconds of control time. Pewter Yan is younger. I do think he has improved his grappling a lot since that fight 2.5 years ago. I just don't know if it's enough. The benefit Pewter has is that it's Merab's 4th title defense this year, because he is seeking a record for a 4th title defense. Pewter has only fought once this year, and that was back in July, and he looked good doing it. But he has not dealt with the grappling dominance that Merab has provided since their first fight. Breaking it down, Merab trains out of Syndicate MMA. He has a black belt in Judo, a purple belt in BJJ. He won silver at the 2019 World Combat Sambo Championships. He's a Ring of Combat alum and former champ with 1 successful title defense. He has 3 successful title defenses. He's tied with Aljamain Sterling for most consecutive title defenses in bantamweight history with 3, so he could have the most in a year and break the bantamweight record. He's tied with Dominic Cruz, Renan Barão, and Aljamain Sterling for the second most title fight wins in bantamweight history with 4. He's the first Georgia-born champ in UFC history. He had the most takedowns landed in a UFC title fight with 20 against Corey Sandhagen. 2 of his last 3 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. The dude's showing up, he's showing out. He has the most unanimous decision wins in bantamweight history with 11. The most decision wins in bantamweight history with 11. The longest win streak in bantamweight history at 13. He has the most takedowns landed in UFC history with 117. He's the first and only fighter to have over 100 takedowns in UFC history. He has the most takedowns landed in bantamweight history with 104. He has the most takedowns attempted in a bout in UFC history, which was 49 against Pewter Yan. He has the second most takedowns attempted in a bout in UFC history as well, which was 37 against Corey Sandhagen, and that was of late. He has the second most takedowns landed in a UFC bout with 20 against Corey Sandhagen. He's the only UFC fighter to land 10 or more takedowns in 5 separate fights. He has also the most total strikes landed in bantamweight history, 2,476, although a lot of that is ground and pound. He has the most control time in bantamweight history, 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 58 seconds. He's tied with TJ Dillashaw and Marlon Vera for second most wins in bantamweight history with 13. He has the second most total fight time in bantamweight history, 4 hours, 19 minutes, 7 seconds. The second highest top position time in bantamweight history, 54 minutes, 25 seconds. The third longest average fight time in bantamweight history, 17 minutes, 16 seconds. The most total body strikes landed in bantamweight history, 127 against Brad Katona. He also has the most total leg strikes landed in bantamweight history, which was 95 against Jose Aldo. He holds wins over 4 former champions: Jose Aldo, Petr Yan, Henry Cejudo, and Sean O'Malley 2 times. He won last year's 2025 SB for Best MMA Fighter, and he is on a 14-fight winning streak. Now, Petr trains out of Tiger Muay Thai. He has a blue belt in BJJ. He's the former bantamweight champ and interim champ. He's tied with Cody Garbrandt for the third most knockdowns in UFC bantamweight history with 10. He has the second most significant strikes landed in bantamweight history, 1,317. He has the third most total fight time in bantamweight history, 4 hours, 17 minutes, and 4 seconds. The second most total strikes landed in bantamweight history, 1,758. And he holds wins over 2 former champs, Jose Aldo and Deiveson Figueiredo. He's on a 3-fight winning streak and is 3-1 since 2020. Excuse me, 2023. 7 of his 19 wins are via knockout. Now, Petr Yan seems super confident. He should be. I'm not picking against the bantamweight GOAT though, especially since he ripped off 50 takedowns in their last fight. I can see him just doing that again. Plus, he's already fought Petr. There's that mental advantage in a rematch. You know, Aljo also fought him twice. So Merab's team, Syndicate, and his former team who still coaches him should be well prepared. The only way I see Petr winning this fight is if Merab gets overzealous with the stand-up and tries to strike for too long and gets caught trying to prove the world that he can be a striker and what he can do with his hands. I think he's smart. I think he goes for takedowns. For that reason, I'm saying, and still, I'm taking Merab Dvalishvili. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. What a doozy, UFC 323. The UFC, the last pay-per-view, this pay-per-view, and the first one of 2026, absolutely bonkers. I mean, we started in the early prelims. There's dudes. We get Myron Santos, watch out. Mansour Abdul Malik. The return of Turner against Barboza. Marvin trying to stay alive in the UFC. In the prelims, violence. Sadiqov and Ziam. Macy Barber, can she return? Chris Duncan, Terrence McKinney, blood everywhere. In the main card, we got Peyton Talbot. Can he beat the Triple C? Brandon Moreno, Tatsuro Taira, the future. And then 2 title fights on the line, Alexandre Pantoja, Merab Dvalishvili. Well, you better enjoy it. Although we do have one more week, back to the Apex. Pretty decent card. Very fun headliner, though. Also in the flyweight division, Brandon Royval Manel Kopp. And then we have like 6 weeks off. I don't remember the last time we've had so much time off entering the new year. But with the new Paramount CBS deal, there is a certain amount of fight nights and a certain amount of pay-per-views. They may even up the volume, so there will be less weeks off. But we are getting the summertime football break type example for the UFC. My heart's breaking a little bit. But in that time, next week, we got a full show recapping 323, previewing the Apex, one more episode recapping the Apex. I will give my year-end awards. I will also do my annual look back. Every year, I predict who the title holders will be in the next year, and I will look at how I did and pick my title champions for the next year as well. But that's episode 127. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week. Go Grizz, go.